Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we're often running and often streaming. Can watch the show, as always, on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel and also on Twitter at HVarsity Radio for Hail Varsity Radio at ESPN Lincoln. And Facebook there for you as well, with the ESPN Lincoln Facebook. And comment on the StreamYard, get to your tweets as well, and, of course, dive into some emails, chris@hailvarsity.com. Give us a follow on Twitter, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio, or Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. Find him on Twitter. We'll dive in with some Nebraska basketball, and Nebraska taking the number one team in the country, the new number one team in the country, to overtime. Some robbery, perhaps, and for sure some missed opportunities by the Big Red, but we'll get there. Hall of Fame basketball coach Jeff Smith, longtime Nebraska assistant as well, going to be with us in 20 minutes in hour two. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie, get his take on the news of the college football world. And then Brady Oltmans, going to get him in on a big official visit weekend for Nebraska. Lots of 2023 and beyond prospects, as well as some portal targets. 3 commits already for Nebraska today. So Brady with Hail Varsity going to be with us at 5:25. Phones are there for you to use. If you want, jump in at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Before some reality and some sad news, we got to start with a little humor and a case of mistaken identity. My general manager called me into her office. Elijah was flanked by my side, and she casually asked me if I was at Taco Bell on West O Saturday at, midnight?
This would have been just after 9 p.m.
Oh, okay. So before the midnight deadline. It was it was 9 p.m. Man, that's early to tie one on.
Well, yeah.
Allegedly.
So a caller called into Lincoln Police just after 9 and advised that a 53-year-old male later found to be Christopher Schmidt.
Yes, not 53 yet.
But later found to be Christopher Schmidt broke the restaurant exterior door with a metal rod. 2 employees, Lucas Smith and Caleb Bumgardner, attempted to make him leave. He refused, at which point they began assaulting him with an aluminum broomstick and one of the restaurant's metal chairs. Allegedly. Mm-hmm. Allegedly. And police came in and all 3 were arrested. But we have found that it was not one Chris Schmidt, it was one Christopher Schmidt. So
middle name is important.
Mm-hmm.
His being
Troy,
mine being James. I was probably in bed or watching hoops or something at 9 p.m. on Friday, or make it Saturday. I was doing basketball shortly before 9 p.m. Saturday, I did not go out, because I got the evil look from Mama because I didn't want to go anywhere. You got sweatpants on, you're wearing a T-shirt. Like, I'm good. I'm just going to go watch basketball. I'm going to crawl into bed. That was not me.
And I think they got that new Taco Bell open on your neck of the woods now, so you don't have to drive all the way to Westo.
No. I've been through the drive-thru many, many times with Junior. And he always wants to see if he can max my debit card out.
Well, there is something special about that Westo Taco Bell. I'm not sure it's worth the trip for me all the way to Westo. Maybe somebody in Lincoln it is. It still has that old 90s look on the inside. They haven't renovated
bright
it.
Colors.
Where, yeah, it's got like the pastel, like pink and blue weird designs all over the restaurant. So if that's what you're into, if you miss that feel from the past, that blast from the past, go check out Taco Bell in Westo, and don't bring any metal rods, metal chairs, or attempt to break in after hours.
The doors are locked. Do the drive-through.
Yes.
Simple as that. That sounds like a conversation with our dear friend Mike Leach.
Oh.
Late night drive-thrus and tacos in West Texas. It's been just awful sad, right? With the news on Coach Mike Leach, the latest critical condition for the Pirate, and reports earlier today from the Clarion Ledger out of Mississippi. He suffered a heart attack. You have a little bit more in-depth from John Canzano, well-respected radio and print man out in Oregon. We talked to John, I think, a few years back because of his relationship with Mike Riley. And John Canzano really close with Coach Leach. And that's just it. There's so many people in this world that Coach Leach spent time with, gave his time. If you're a new reporter, if you're a weather guy in Lubbock, if you're a high roller and award winner like John Canzano, or Bruce Feldman, award-winning author, or Lars Anderson down in Alabama. I mean, Mike Leach was there for the air quote heavyweights, but Mike Leach took time to just be an awesome dude, always taking time. And we are absolutely heartbroken with this news, and I'm in absolute shock. He is still with us, and we're praying for him and his family, and that's what I ask you to do, is just pray for him and his family for recovery. With John's story that's up on Twitter, he just kind of laid out a few things here with Coach Leach, that he had been suffering. He is suffering with heart failure, fluid around his heart and his lungs. Pirate battled some pneumonia, and that persistent hacking and coughing. And when we talked to him on Thursday, he had some hacking and coughing, but he was his normal, jovial, funny, irreverent, just beautiful self. And the talks with the Pirate over the years, we've been so blessed, and that's just Mike Leach. And then our old buddy Mike Schaefer sent out a really heartfelt tweet earlier today, and I love you, Schaefer, thanks for doing that, that Leach loved talking to people. He liked doing the 60 Minutes thing. He loves doing things for people, or talking to the barista. The thing that's so funny when we talk with the Pirate is, what else has he got going on besides the earbuds and phone, besides the interview? And what the Pirate does is multitask. He could be in the can. He could be walking to practice at Washington State. Could be on his he could be on his paddleboard in the lake in Mississippi.
Yeah, he was walking along the beach drinking a cup of Cuban coffee one time whenever we called him down in Key West.
Yeah, and just love him. And this is a sad moment. This is a serious moment, and we pray that the doctors and healthcare professionals can get him to have a full recovery. The reality with John Canzano's story, again, Pirate found unresponsive for about 10 to 15 minutes on his sofa. And they worked to sedate him, stabilize his condition, and then they got him to the only Trauma One center in Mississippi, and that's where he's at. So we love you, Coach Leach, and thinking about you and your family, man, and just keep fighting, partner, for us. So that is that.
One quick thing I'd like to throw in here is the fact that what's really phenomenal about the past couple days with Mike Leach is, for all his accomplishments that he has made on the football field, people are remembering him of the past couple days because of how he treated people. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was one of the originators of the air raid offense, really came in and changed football for the better, but that's not what people are chiming on Twitter about with their memories of Mike Leach. It's not about what it was on the football field, it's who he was off the field. Mm-hmm. And that's how people are going to remember you in your life. It's not about what you do, but it's how you treat people, how you make people feel, and that is your legacy. And Mike Leach's legacy, if the reports we're hearing are true, is that of a guy who always made time for people, always made people feel special, and was just constantly working to have a heart for other people. And I think that's what made Mike Leach so phenomenal. Is he was one of those big time coaches, larger than life, but he never was too big time
to anybody.
He was never too big time to have a conversation with somebody on the street even. So many people with special memories of Mike Leach in that way, and I've been enjoying reading the memories of Mike Leach, because that's who Mike Leach was. It wasn't about the football to him. It was about the relationships and about the people, and he lived that every single day.
The outpouring of love for the Pirate. Keep that outpouring going for the Pirate. Thoughts and prayers still in critical condition, but we're thinking about the Pirate, thinking about Coach. We'll spend some time here in about 10 minutes with Jeff Smith. And just one more thing about Coach. And there's a lot of listeners and friends that have just texted, and like I'm in shock. I'm not family. I've been lucky enough to get to do what I love for a lot of years. Been lucky enough to have him respond to a request and chitter chatter off air. Every time we talk, it's, hey, how's Junior? He asks about Carson. So you pinch yourself that a guy of his magnitude gets back to you and gets back to you at 3 a.m. and talks to you about Key West. And two friends that really made his day before we left for Ireland, Jeff Erickson and Jay Erickson. I always love sending the Pirate some of Nebraska's best steaks. It's a thank you. It's a thank you of, bro, you've done interviews with me since 2009. Anytime I ask, no worry, sure, yeah. And he's done that with a lot of people because he's that great a guy. And I love sending him either beef jerky or Nebraska steak because he's a steak eater. So last time we sent him steak, I think, was in the spring, and the company we used didn't put enough dry ice in what they sent him. And he called me up. He's like, Schmidt, thanks for your thought, brother, but the meat was rotten we got. I'm like, oh, God. I'm so sorry. Let me get this fixed. Let me get you some more scent. And he's like, but it turned out okay because there's a guy down the street we don't like. We just put it in his dumpster. The guy goes out to put his trash in, and there's 8 ribeye that are just beastly. So Jeff Erickson and Jay Erickson, Jay Bird, we love you. Jeff, you too. Got some real Nebraska, Western Nebraska steak we got to send to him, and before we left for Ireland. And of course we got his, what should we go do in Ireland? And he's like, well, you got to have a Guinness. Yeah, Coach, that's on our list to do, and we did. But that story is great. Just how he, 2009 Texas Tech game, Nebraska's playing Tech, and that's how I first met him, just doing post-game for Fox Sports, and hit it off. You want to get a beer and a burger? Sure, Coach, you got time? So that was like my first experience with him. And then he and Jack Arute worked on Sirius XM, and the year he was out of coach, and I was lucky enough to start back here at ESPN. Me and partner, he's like, hey, I'm free. I'm not coaching, so do you care if I come on? Yeah, you can come on. Every Thursday till a guy named Bill Moose found him at Hemingway's Bar in Key West, said, how about you come back and coach some college football at Washington State? And he did. And then he went to Mississippi State. And another thing that's special is last game I ever got to watch with my father was that Mississippi State LSU upset during COVID. So I have so much love and fond memories of my dad. And the last time we got to crack a beer and watch football was watching the Pirate. And right after the ball game, you send him a hell of a win. You just took down the defending national champs. He's like, yeah, I think we'll be pretty good. ... How's Nebraska? You know, so I just love the guy. Thinking about him and his family. And when you hit your knees tonight, think of the Pirate, please. Email, get that in at chris@hailvarsity.com. And we'll spend some time and shift gears and talk some Nebraska basketball. Fred and his kids are fighting. And they almost had a monster upset. Not enough juice offensively, but, man, you love the effort. You love the fact the defense will travel. And the reality with Nebraska basketball this year with Fred and his crew, they are going to be a problem for almost everybody. If they can do that to Purdue, they may not win them all, but they're going to be in most of them. And that's a tribute to Fred and his crew. Husker Hoops Thoughts. We'll get into recruiting at Hail Varsity, and we're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Hall of Fame coach Jeff Smith and a longtime assistant at Nebraska. Coach, what a weekend of basketball. And I was looking through the Big Ten press release today, and the Big Ten always kind of lays out their weekly awards. And for some reason, I don't see team MVP for Ohio State, for Purdue, or for Wisconsin, the same officiating crew that had some controversial, dare we say, calls or miscalls. Fran's still turning beat purple. How are you, Coach?
Good. Yeah, you wonder if some of those guys are working too many games almost, and they kind of
like 3 in a week.
Yeah, lose focus, or I don't know. There were some tough calls. There was a tough one in the Nebraska game, obviously, probably an anticipation call. I've seen the baseline, Ohio State, when you see that along the baseline quite a bit called in basketball, where they'll run out of bounds, going baseline, come in and catch it. Saw that quite a bit, but not too much running down the sideline in that situation. I just probably one that the officials just kind of caught them off guard, or they just didn't. Maybe they were watching the ball, and I don't know. That was a tough one, though. And that's where you wonder, like they review every touchdown. Do you review those late game situations after the buzzer goes off on any controversy at all? Do you hold them on the court and review that,
Well, let's talk bigger picture and Nebraska's effort and just intensity. It looked like it was Goodnight Irene with Purdue up 14, and then Kisei and company just won't go away. A 10-0 run for Nebraska. They force overtime. They had their chances, 4 offensive rebounds, 1 possession, and then the call everyone's talking about, of course, is the phantom grab that led to 2 free throws and the eventual win for Purdue. Nebraska's defense coach did enough to keep him in the game. The offense didn't do enough to win the game. It's tough for Nebraska fans, but I guess the silver lining is PBA sounded like PBA again. And if you're Fred and company, you can take this effort with confidence, but you gotta build from it.
Yeah, you got to talk about their defense, and that's where you can be the most consistent on the floor. But they're not giving up layups in transition. They're running the floor back and building a wall. They've been in stances to watch Vandemel up on the point guard and take kind of getting him out of the middle of the floor, and their stances are fantastic. Their communication's good because they're handling the screens well. on balls and all those doubles, and their rotations are really sound. And then, they're not giving up extreme amount of offensive rebounds, even against a big team like Purdue. And the one thing that really was impressive in that game was their double on the post. They're rotating from the baseline, and they're getting there when the ball gets there. And they got Edey off balance a few times and forced some turnovers because he was off balance. And that was a really impressive rotation and game plan. And I thought Walker and company just did a great job on, one of the leading scorers in the country.
Coach Jeff Smith is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, the defense was impressive, but it was Kisei Tominaga that was going to get the headlines following that game with that heat check pull-up three to bring the Huskers within one, and then the three-pointer to tie it just before the buzzer. It was Kisei offensively, our whole team performance defensively, though. But I want you to speak for a second on Kisei. He's a guy that, maybe a streaky shooter, but whenever he gets hot, it doesn't feel like there's really been anyone in Nebraska history that can knock down the three with as much consistency as he does. That is once he gets hot.
Yeah, he's a little streaky, but it seems like he's gaining confidence, and they're, from the bench he's getting an absolute green light, which always helps the shooter. But I like his enthusiasm. I think PBA needs that. I think that team needs that. I think Sam and Derek Walker are steady, mature players, but they don't show a lot of emotion. I think he's that guy that can bring emotion to the team. And when he's got it going, I think they've got to run stuff for him. They got to let him go a few more minutes. Wilcher obviously didn't have it the other night. He's been really, really up and down. I'd like to see him just in the middle sometime. Mm-hmm. But they had, offensively, they weren't at their best offensively. Besides Casey, they struggled a little bit from the three and getting some performance from the guy. And I thought, even though they shot 70% from the line, they missed a couple crucial front ends, and then some of the other guys just missed some threes that I think they've got to knock down to beat what is now the number one team in the country.
Yeah. Well, and what I don't think I saw against Purdue, I didn't see panic. The shots that were maybe a little questionable went in, which is good. But for the most part, they were pretty poised on offense. And the last, couple 3 minutes, both teams had issues scoring the ball. I mean, Purdue was 3 of 14. Nebraska was 5 of 19 shooting. So it was a desert offensively. But a lot of that had to do with Nebraska's defensive effort against a giant, and then Purdue's obviously going to clog that lane up. But I thought Walker was just a joy to watch, especially with that offhand, able to beat the would-be misdirection or block when he got going downhill. Nebraska didn't shoot at all well, obviously 30%. But, man, Coach, what do you think Nebraska heads to Kansas City with after this Purdue ball game? K-State's a big opportunity there, and Nebraska can get out of the non-con here very, very respectable.
Yeah, I think Nebraska, I think they just have to keep doing what they're doing and just continue to get reps where their shots are coming from in practice. I love it when Walker gets the ball around the free throw area because he can drive it. He's a good enough passer. He can distribute. I think that puts a lot of pressure when nobody's help side defensively. That puts a lot of pressure on those opponents, and he's got an uncanny ability of finishing over bigs, and he's able to put a lot of pressure on them. Coach Hoiberg said it after the game. They had good looks in that game, winning looks, but they didn't make the winning shots. And they've just got to knock those down. They've got those three guys that, especially Sam and Vandemel, they've got to get up in the 30% shooting range from the three instead of down the 20s. And I think that'll put us over the hump because our defense is consistent. If they keep building on that, and I think they know it. I think they know that's what's keeping them games. I looked at the scoreboard, and we're down 10, we're down 12, and we're struggling scoring, but we're just not letting them put us away because we just keep competing defensively. But now we've got to just get that offense, just take a couple more steps in that offensive development and reps in those where we're getting those shots and knock those down. And I'm anxious to see one of those games where Wilcher's knocking him down and Tominaga's knocking him down, and maybe Breidenbach comes in and hits one, and we've been close, but we haven't had quite everybody rolling at the same time, and we could beat anybody in the league if we can do that.
It's Coach Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, and if you put yourself in the shoes of Coach Hoiberg, Jeff, what drills would you be running in practice this week? You got an entire week to get better before you obviously head down to Kansas City and play a pretty good Kansas State team. They've only lost once this season. So if you're the head man, what drills would you be running in practice this week to get this team all ready to go?
Yeah, I'm trying to do as much game speed shooting under pressure as I can from where they're getting their shots, and trying to speed their offense up just a little bit more, where they can execute at a high speed to get those looks, and to give guys time to really set and shoot, and really work on where our shots coming from, and let's get a ton of reps under pressure. Game speed reps is what I'd be working on right now, and just keep redefining that defense of what you want to do. I think that's solid, but you can never quit drilling, boxing out, and drilling defensive transition, and drilling handling screens. But I'm focusing a lot on the offensive end with shooting pressure shots at game speed.
Coach, let's spend a minute here on Creighton. We've got about 2.5 minutes till we have a hard out, and then we'll bring you back for a little high school chat as well. But Creighton now continues to reel. Had a tough one against BYU. They got to get right tonight somehow. But what are you seeing with the Blue Jays?
Yeah, missing Kalkbrenner in that last game maybe cost them a win there. But they got foul trouble. They didn't adjust the officials very well. They're just not quite on the same page right now. I think, some people are saying maybe they overscheduled. They've had a tough schedule. It's hard to recover sometimes if you don't have one of those games in between where you can kind of get healthy. And they've definitely had a challenging schedule. But later on, that may pay off. That they're finding a lot out about themselves, and then they can adjust and work and improve. And when they start shooting the ball just a little better, and they get Kalkbrenner back, I still think they have potential. But what they're finding out is when you're a top 10 team, you can go watch somebody on TV and they just look okay, but then they play you and they look like a different team. And I think BYU is a great example of that. BYU was 5-5 going into that game. They'd lost to some teams they shouldn't have. And, Grand Canyon and teams like that, well, they play you. They know we're a top 10 team, and you're going to see their best shot. So it's a lot different when you're on that side of it. And I think they've got to, be ready to handle that kind of performance from opponents.
It is that, and you hear coaches talk about it, you hear ADs preach about it, but going from the hunter to the hunted, and it's a whole different mentality of having to be on every night and be able to respond to different challenges, be it a BYU. It's their Super Bowl, so to speak, at least at this point in the season, and it takes a special team to handle that pressure, but also thrive under it. And right now, I think you're right. I think Creighton will be okay. I think they'll figure things out. They'll put a run together. They'll look like they're supposed to look at some point, but there's some growing pains right now with all the adulation they've received. Coach,
yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. If you got a break, we can go after.
Yeah, hang on. Respond to that, and then we'll get your weekend thoughts with some of the high school prep action. Good weekend of high school basketball. So, Coach Jeff Smith with us, Hall of Famer, longtime Hall of Fame coach with Lincoln Southeast, assistant with Coach Danny Nee, Nebraska basketball. And we'll have a few more minutes with Coach Smith at Hail Varsity, and we're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
A few more minutes. Jeff Smith with us from Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Coach Smith, of course, talking Creighton and their woes. And, Coach, what's a fair timetable to get out of the funk? I know Coach Mack wants it tonight.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little practice time, to be honest with you, kind of to regroup. I was going to say before the break, too, Creighton Creighton has a lot of players that want and need the ball in their hands. Shireman likes handling the ball. Alexander finished the season so strong last year. I think he's confident that he can do more for the team. Kaluma, NBA's talking about Kaluma, so I think he wants to. There's probably scouts at every game, so they've kind of got to get that under control and really get a feel for, who's going to do what and when. And that's not easy to coach sometimes. Sometimes it just takes a little time to work itself out. And, Kalkbrenner was a focus, and then all of a sudden he's out, and we'll see if he plays tonight. But I think they need some practice time here probably, and they really don't get much of a break. Heck, they play on Christmas. They play DePaul on Christmas Day, so they don't have a lot of – sometimes you get to play in too many games and you don't get enough practice time to kind of regroup, and I think they need that.
Coach, do you have any advice for breaking a shooting slump? I know there's a lot of superstitions in baseball for breaking a slump. Was it Giambi that wore the golden thong underneath the jersey to break the slump?
That he did.
And then there was everything from changing bats to urinating on bats. There's a whole lot of superstitions for breaking a slump in baseball.
Moise Salute treatment, yes.
Yeah. Any superstitions for breaking a shooting slump in basketball from you, Coach Smith?
I don't know about superstitions, but my thing was if I had a player that was struggling, I would just take them one-on-one. You can tell them one thing that they think helps, and sometimes it does, but you can look at a kid and say, you're looking up at the ball way too early. Keep your eyes down on the rim a little longer or the whole time. Then they start seeing it going in, and they think, oh, that's it. That's the key. Coach told me my eyes are going up too early, and they start making a few. You work with them one-on-one. You shoot 50 threes and they make 30 of them. They're feeling good about. Sometimes it's just a little thing that you can pick out and just help them one-on-one. And it's not much between having that confidence that it's going in and having that lack of confidence where the hole looks too small. And it's a weird thing, but no, I didn't ever put any special underwear on guys or anything like that. Luke LaLoosh,
No live chicken. I get it. Let's get your thoughts here. The weekend of high school prep action. What'd you think here? I know Southwest survived Omaha North. I know East had a nice win over Central. And what a finish by Millard North to survive in overtime against Southeast.
Yeah, and you called that game. I got to listen to. Unfortunately, I had to go to my wife's Christmas party. I shouldn't say unfortunately; I might get in trouble. But I got to listen to you, and Southeast just kind of their offense went defunct there down the end, but sounded like a pretty good game. East is actually number one in wild card points right now. That Central win got them over the hump. And then Southwest is fifth in wild card. North Star seventh. Southeast is ninth. Lincoln overall right now is 19-8, and I really, we said that at the start of the year. I really feel like it's trending up for the Lincoln schools, and they've all got pretty good wins under their belt, and they've all played a fairly good schedule with the preps in the Millard North. But East has prep this weekend and Lincoln High. That's going to be a really good test to see where they are. Sometimes it takes some time to really get a feel for where they're at. Southeast is at Gretna, and Gretna's beat a couple Lincoln teams already, Northeast in overtime, and Lincoln High needs that East test to see where they've had a little easier schedule, but they're 3-1 and gaining some confidence. And then Millard North's playing everybody in the Metro, and now it's Northeast turn, so that'll be a good one. And then and Northeast Northeast plays Bell West, and Millard North plays North Star. So. And then Pius has West Side. So there's some great games here in the city with the top Metro teams, and we're going to be able to sort a little bit out of where people are after this weekend.
You get some of your legs back from that football to basketball transition, and I know that's what we're expecting from West Side and also from Gretna. And yeah, they're going on the road this weekend or hosting in Gretna's case, but you're just wondering when that gap, if that gap would narrow between the Omaha Metro and Lincoln Metro. And right now, you got to feel pretty good if you're a Lincoln basketball fan. And I know that the title goes through the Metro, the last several state championships.
Yeah, you do feel much better. I think just talent-wise, you can go watch Southwest and Northeast and Southeast and just see that there's length and size and shooting ability, and some of it's pretty youthful too. So I think it feels like all the Lincoln schools can compete with just about anybody. And, Bell West still has that probably a little bit of an edge on people, and Gretna coming off a really good year with their toughness, and, those coaches do a great job. But, there's not a very big gap there if there is a gap at all. And I think Lincoln high school basketball is kind of back and gaining confidence that they can play with anybody.
Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, Hall of Fame coach for the Southeast Knights, longtime assistant with Nebraska and Coach Nee. Coach, this was awesome. Thanks for making time today and jumping on with us to go over some hoops and not only at the college level but also the high school realm. And always fun spending time with you.
Love it, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, Coach. There he is, Jeff Smith with us here at Hail Varsity Radio. I love our Monday chats and really good inside expertise. Coach Smith's as good as it gets. Man.
Were you surprised to see Purdue jump up to number 1 after what they did on Saturday? It's a testament to them that they were able to stick with that, like at the hostile home court advantage that is PBA, and stick with it and go grind out a win. But I was surprised to see him jump up to 1.
Well, I'll say this. I think a lot of the national talking heads, A, they like Fred, and they should like Fred, but B, I think they've seen enough in Nebraska with their quad 1 schedule to know that, okay, Nebraska's not great. Are they a tournament team? Probably not. Don't know. But this is different, and they've seen it multiple times now where it's just not a off night by the other guy. Nebraska's causing those off nights, and I know Florida State's a bit of a mess, and BC's not great, but you see some comparative scores. Okay, who did BC just lose to? Oh, they lost to so-and-so by 10. Or Florida State was in it till about the 5-minute mark or so. What's going on? Well, Nebraska's just better. They're just better. I think that's being realized by folks at Fox, folks at ESPN, a number of the college basketball writers notice the difference in its grit, its toughness, and quite frankly, it's about the togetherness with this Nebraska basketball team. That's the biggest difference to me. Real quick, go to the phones.
We got Moose on the line.
Moose, go for it, bud. How are you?
Hey, guys. Happy Monday. The Nebraska basketball team is becoming one of my favorite squads of all time. Right, guys? Been going to games, I guess I will admit it, for 40 years. And you have to go back to when Coach Smith was coaching there to find some of my other favorite squads. But this is, they're right up there. They're a joy to watch. I felt like they deserved to win on Saturday. I'm not going to get into officiating or whatever, but they're working hard. They don't give up. They share. They play defense. It's a fun squad to watch. I can't wait.
It is, Moose. Hang on for us. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down hour 1, plenty of Nebraska football, the official visit weekend. Brady Oltmans with us next hour. Charlie McBride in 10 minutes. Moose, finish your thoughts, bud. We wanted to give you a little bit more airtime here just because, well, you were up against it, bud. That shot clock was winding down, so go ahead.
Yeah, that's the story of my life, Chris. I just think that, would we love to see wins and tournaments and all that? Yeah. But I think the majority of Husker Nation is knowledgeable enough to know that we want to see effort. We want to see good, hard effort, and they're hanging their hat on defense and rebounding, and it's a lot of fun. And being in Pinnacle Bank on Saturday that's how it's supposed to sound in there. Right?
Amen.
That's how we want it. And we're season ticket holders, and we go regardless. But it's a lot more fun when you got a team to watch that is a lot of fun to watch. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Moose, thanks for the phone call. I think you hit all the pertinent points of what this team is and why this team's cheered for. It's their effort, it's their selflessness, and it's their buy-in for defense. They're tough, they're gritty. They just want to get the victory. They don't care how it happens. And it's a 180 from maybe the mentality of the past couple of teams where maybe you've had some more athletic ability or skill, but you've got different agendas. You've got one agenda at this point in the season, and that's to go play for one another. And credit Fred, who is a guy that wants to win offensively, but he just wants to win, and he wants to stay in Lincoln, and he wants to put a competitive and winning basketball team out there. And it's driven him nuts. I would think that it's gone the way it's gone, and he's had enough. So he's changed, he's shifted. I think Trev Albert sees that. I think you see the social media response by Trev, Elijah, out there supporting the team. You over-delivered with Creighton with that wow win. You had a tough one against Indiana without Sam. And, yeah, quite honestly, I mean, they were within striking distance of that ball game. They were down 7 and took some stupid shots. Not always going to be perfect, but then to go out there and hang against Purdue is flat out remarkable. And they just need to be better offensively, and time will tell if they can do that. But they're going to hang around because of what they have defensively, because of their buy-in, because of their commitment.
Well, and this very well could be, even if it's a team that not goes 500, it could be a team that saves Fred's job around here in Nebraska, because look at the student section on Saturday. Back when I was in school, not that long ago, you'd go talk to people, oh, you going to watch the Husker basketball game tonight? The Husker basketball team plays tonight? People didn't know what was going on, but now there's actual, I don't want to call it must-see just yet, but people actually care to go watch this. And when you combine it with the fact that Fred's put a couple guys in the NBA over the past couple seasons, if you can start turning the wins together, you can build something here at Nebraska. I mean, you can go sell it to recruits right now. I got 2 guys that I coached in the past 3 years. They're on terrible basketball teams, and they're going and doing well in the NBA. Think about what's going to happen once we start getting some wins.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the goal. The mission here next weekend, go down to Kansas City, get out of this 4-game spurt with a 2-2 mark. Get into Big Ten play with a very respectable 3 games over 500 against Power 5 squads. And get better. Get better from three-point land or on offense with multiple options. Coach McBride joins us next hour. It's Hail Varsity presented by Currency.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. It's that time. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt himself, a Monday with Charlie, Coach Charlie McBride. Coach, how was the weekend? How's the weather?
The weather's great, and the weekend was good. It's just overcast here, all the time. But the weather's been good. I mean, it's for this time of year.
That is good to hear. It's kind of been dark and gloomy a lot of the day today here, but hoping that there's a little bit of sunshine. I would not bet on it, though. A little bit of sunshine for Nebraska football fans. I want to get your thoughts on the new defensive coordinator. He was hired last week. Officially, the statement went out Friday. Tony White was at Syracuse, and a number of people are praising the hire. It's not a familiar hire for Matt Rule. It's somebody that he's never worked with professionally. Now, they did cross over player to coach at UCLA, and Coach, he wants to be fast and aggressive on defense. How's that sound to you?
Well, fast sounds good and aggressive sounds good. Anytime you get, have that philosophy, a lot of times I think it's, it's important that, I think, you do the same thing I think most coaches want to do is, try to stop the run first and then, force them into throwing the ball. It's the smart thing to do around here. I know they were able to play inside at Syracuse, and that makes a difference too. You don't get the weather like you do, in some places. So, you got a pretty good look at it, but to adjust your defense, if it's real windy, they're going to run the ball probably more and throw the ball short. So that makes a little bit of difference in what you're thinking.
Coach, I want to get your thought. There's been a lot of reaction, not all positive, about the style of defense. It's a 3-3-5. And what do you? I know Rocky Long's kind of the godfather of the 3-3-5, but what do you know about it? What do you think about it? How can it work?
Well, I don't know anything about it really, to be honest with you. It's giving your people a lot of chances to run. Your backers are, you're sitting there with 3 backers and 3 down linemen, so you have an extra DB. You're playing with a nickel back who you can move around and do things with. And I assume he's kind of an adjuster and he's a blitzer. Mm-hmm. So and it could be a good defense. I don't know on the edge what it's like. I can see that it kind of limits your blitzing maybe a little bit. In some cases, it maybe makes it more of a blitz package than I think. But that's another thing. If you want to be a pressure defense, if you're a man coverage defense or a zone, a lot of that makes a big difference in a defense. You can go from very aggressive to very conservative. But it looks like they're going to have a chance to move around a little bit, and you have to do you have the right personnel? Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. You better have 3 good backers that can run and cover and things like that. So and who knows who's going to be here?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, you don't really know. I assume that then you have to go out and find somebody. You're going to have to take somebody that has left a place to play somewhere else, and I would guess that they weren't starters where they were, mm-hmm. And so they're you're talking about maybe a good player, but not a great player.
Coach Charlie McBride's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, you've just alluded to the fact that it's all about getting the right personnel and to run the defense properly. But you're a guy who's always been a 4-3 guy, and I want to get your take. Do you still think the 4-3 is the best defense to run? Or why'd you run the 4-3 as opposed to running a 3-4 or a 3-3-5? Just talk me through that for a second.
Well, a little bit it had to do with sometimes, I don't think it was the total thing. I think we wanted to get the backers in. We felt like they could cover better. We wanted to get pressure off the edge a little better than we did in the the odd front. And we wanted to be simple, but we wanted to put ourselves in position to have blitz packages and keep the coverage the same. So we had a lot of different blitzes we could run, but we didn't change the coverage in it, and that helped us quite a bit. We fooled our linebackers a lot, kept them up in the line of scrimmage sometimes and backed them off, and sometimes to make it a little tough on the reads of the quarterback, who's coming and who's not. So there were, and disguise, if you can disguise your secondary, that was the big thing with us, is to try to disguise our secondary a little bit. And so there were some things that people didn't do. One was, like I said, fooling the linebackers and moving them up. And sometimes it looked like we had all our linebackers standing up in the line of scrimmage, and we went up in there until the ball was snapped. And that's the thing you have to really work on. I mean, that doesn't happen overnight, because people always you'll see people fooling, but they're backing out of there before the play starts. and so on and so forth. And we were a gap responsibility team. So I think there's a lot of different styles of doing it. We had guys standing, and when you have a front with no outside guys up on the line of scrimmage, you pretty much know, it's easier for your back to find out who's coming and who's not, And, I don't know how much they get involved with running that fifth defensive back as far as, blitzing. I'm not familiar with that, and I'm sure there's a lot of tricks with that thing.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, talking the 3-3-5 and Tony White. Coach, we've touched on personnel a couple of different times, and when you switched to the 4-3, tell us a little bit what made you confident in your personnel, because you guys were different to get that speed on the field. You kind of went inside out with Ed Stewart, a safety that's playing backer. A lot of your safeties like a Terrell Farley or Jamel Williams, those hybrid guys were so talented against the run, but man, they were demons off the edge. And then, of course, your defensive line was super fast and could still stop the run.
Right. That was the whole thing. Is we turned a lot of what you'd call good players down. You watch them film, but they just couldn't run like we'd like them to, and so a lot of we weren't afraid to put our outside backers put their hands on the ground. So we really didn't move people into those positions. I mean, we recruited a little different with them. We've had guys that were 195, 210 in that area play, but most of them were somewhere in the 230 range, and but they were scorpions. I mean, they could really motor, and our linebackers were probably fastest players on our team. Some of them were sub. In those days, they were, somewhere around 10.6, 10.5, 100-meter guys.
Wow.
That could really, really motor. And, I think Jamel and some of those guys ran in high school, and Jamel ran a 100-yard dash. And I know in Florida, I think it was 9.4 was the time that he had down there, but he was a consistent 9.5 guy. And, so we had that kind of speed coming off the edge, and their tackles just couldn't handle it. But if you look at a three-man front with out of the old 52 or 3-4 defense or whatever you want to call it, if you look at that and you take one defensive lineman out and add him with a speed guy, that right away your team's faster. You know what I'm saying? So we basically had guys that were really good athletes on the edge, and then we had the Peter brothers and Danny Noonan, and we had guys inside that were basically they were big, strong, physical guys. Now our we ran some offset nose out of that package, and we had some guys that could really move quick. They were quicker guys, Mike Murray, and some of these people that were really beat the center, hit the gaps quick, and were able to penetrate. So there's a different kids would do a little different things, but normally we had, instead of having 3 defensive linemen, we had 2 inside, and then the outside guys were what you would consider outside linebacker type guys. We ran some zone blitzes and some things like that, which they dropped. And, in fact, everybody on our front dropped at some point in time in our coverages. And mostly it was the nose. In fact, at one time, Steve Warner, nose, was leading the team in interceptions with 3.
We'll tell Steve about that.
Yeah, he had the best hands, too. I'll believe it or not, he really did have good hands. I mean, he really did, and he had a knack for knocking balls down when in the pass rush. Some guys have it and some guys don't, but he did. He knocked quite a few balls down when he was rushing the passer, and So there's those kind, but it's easy to find personnel, and we made strong linebackers like Eddie Stewart was one of them. He was so mad at me, for a while because he was a strong safety, and that's what he wanted to play. Mm-hmm. He wanted to play in the secondary, but he was the strongest and the biggest of them, and he was fast, and we moved him inside, and of course after he got used to it, he loved it and ended up being an All-American. So I guess that's okay. Yeah, but it depends a lot on your recruiting. You have to really zero in on what you're going to do.
Yeah, Coach, and that's where I was going to go next with it. We only got about 2 minutes left here, so only a little bit of time. But I wanted to ask, if you were building up a defense from scratch, bringing your scheme in from somewhere else and trying to make a new defense, where would you start in recruiting? Well, what position group do you think is the most important to build a solid foundation for your defense?
Well, the inside guys, the defensive line is really important. I mean, number one is we worked hard at not letting people off on the linebackers. Mm-hmm. Even though they had a scholarship, we didn't want to save them all the way. But, you want to try to keep the guys off, use your hands well, keep them off the backers if you can, as long as you can. A fraction of a second makes a difference because you can get a linebacker, keep him in a good enough position where he can still make a play and not overrun something or whatever. But usually the two inside guys the defensive line and two inside guys are really important. I mean, the two tackles, one was a nose, but we played them in what we called two techniques, which was an even look. Right? We paid them head up. A lot of guys are offset and things like that, and that way they didn't know which side we were going, left or right. It was a little easier to disguise what we were doing, and people knew what we were doing. We just played the blocking schemes better than they could block them.
That works. Charlie McBride with us, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, it's awesome to spend time with you. We'll be sure to catch up next Monday and talk some more Nebraska football. We thank you kindly for your insight and taking time with us today.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'll talk to you next week. Have a nice week.
You too, Coach. Take care.
Okay. Yep, bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride with us. A Monday with Charlie on Hail Varsity Radio. Just pretty insightful there with, all right, here's how the old sausage was made. Get two badasses on the interior, put speed to their right and left shoulder pad. Get two more speed demons off the edge that are hybrid-type guys that will kick your butt in the run game. Have a guy like an Ed Stewart or a Phil Ellis or a Carlos Polk in the middle. And then, your secondary's on an island, Baron Miles or Tyrone Williams or Ralph Brown, Mike Brown, Warfield. I mean, we're naming NFL people all throughout, and there's an NFL guy that starts, and then there's a future NFL guy that backed up, and a future NFL guy who backed up the second team guy and the first team guy.
See, whenever he said it, it sounded a lot more simple than however you just laid it out. You laid it out there, and I go, wow.
I mean, they developed. They absolutely identified and developed some big names and some guys that turned into big names. Are some big names on the horizon. Brady Oltmans talks official visit weekend next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. A Monday edition. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. Great stuff from Charlie McBride. We welcome in Brady Oltmans, staff writer with Hail Varsity, all over this official visit weekend at Brady Oltmans on Twitter. Now, Elijah, we've got to be a little careful, and this isn't on you, but apparently there's someone who's uber active here on the StreamYard that is trying to get dates for all of us.
Yeah, I've been working to block out some of those comments here. I'll even pass on saying the website name.
Yeah,
we keep on saying
there's no free shout-outs this Monday.
It's a new AI dating site that is apparently great at matching you up with singles in your area. So
So there you go. Now
I'm in the market. I've been thinking about clicking.
I know you're. No, you're in the market. I am not. I am not in the market. Brady, Nebraska in the market for all sorts of help here with the rule regime. And first, thanks for joining us, man. Secondly, great stuff tracking down, running down all of these commitments. 3 so far for Nebraska. Kai Whelan, let's start with him. JUCO edge defender. I know Utah liked him. He's out of Sacramento American River Community College. Tell me what you like about this edge guy, 6'5", 230.
Well, his frame stands out immediately. I mean, he's going to be a guy that I think you get into Matt Rule's system and that developmental collegiate weight program, especially the new facility, the Go Big project that they've got there. You're going to have three applicable seasons in 4 years for this kid. I mean, he's a freshman, only played 1 year at JUCO, so you're going to have some good miles on him. He's a tough guy. He's kind of a gritty, as he likes to describe himself, big on that big frame, and can kind of move in what Tony White likes to do with that defense. He could either stand up and be a 2-point stance end, or he can shift in one of those linebacker roles. So he's an interesting get, and he's one that the previous coaching staff offered as well, and then one that this one really wanted to go after.
Specialty off the edge, got to be getting to the quarterback, but how is he about setting the edge, in your opinion?
I think he definitely could be better, but I think he already starts with a little bit of advantage with his frame alone. I mean, he's going to be a guy that is just tough to move off the ball in general, and I think that that's going to help Nebraska in the long run in any way that they want to go, and whether he's playing on the second level or playing on the line of scrimmage at the end.
Brady, you said that should help Nebraska in the long run, but are there any guys that Nebraska's talking to right now could already be committed that you think could be guys that are contributors next year? Maybe not as starters, but guys that are going to see the field and their confidence is going to go up as the year goes on, and maybe by the end of the year they could be in something closer to a starting role, similar to what we saw with a guy like Ernest Hausman this year.
So far, I think I feel it's tough because you kind of got to look at where they're at right now on the depth chart and where they would fit in well, because I think Riley Van Poppel is one that I think immediately stands out. He's a guy that's bought in, not one of the recent commits, but he's one of the guys that's bought into this coaching staff and was a commit already. I think he's got the mentality that he's ready to go in and get some minutes, and he could potentially on the interior line. He could definitely, squeeze some minutes out of there. If there's any guys committed right now, I think it's going to be tough. Some of these athletes and these edge position players might be able to squeeze a couple of good playing style minutes out there. But I think that the best immediate impact guys are the ones that are on the verge of committing in the next couple of weeks.
What feel do you have right now with the 16 kids that were here? There'll be more visits clearly before December 21st. Who are some prospects you feel pretty good about with Nebraska?
It's going to be really interesting. I think right off the bat, Jalen Lloyd from Omaha Westside is going to announce his commitment on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. He took his official visit this last weekend. He's in a really interesting spot. I just talked with some coaches earlier today. They all like him, really liked him as a high school prospect. And then he was scheduled to make his announcement, his commitment, but strictly for track, earlier. And then he got like a stomach bug and lost his voice and had to postpone his commitment. And then lo and behold, 2 days later, he gets an offer from Nebraska to actually play football and I believe do track as well. So he's going to announce his commitment on Saturday. That could potentially be a big get. And he's they've kind of teased Tristan Alvano with that as a West Side duo to commit pretty soon here. So I know Tristan also really liked the new coaching staff on his visit, feels good about it, and wants to be part of the early signing period, but might commit earlier than that. So we'll see what the future holds.
If Alvano is in, Brady, do you think we'll be talking about, fall camp storylines, a kicking competition potentially?
He definitely could. I mean, crying out loud, that's no shade on Timmy Bleakroad. I mean, it's just a testament to the kind of guy that that Tristan is coming in or would be coming in, when you're hitting 57-yarders at the high school level and you're, being stopped by Alabama and teams of that ilk, your job's in jeopardy. So you're going to have to really bring it. There have been a couple of place kickers or kickers on Nebraska's depth chart, walk-ons or guys in there that have already entered the transfer portal. So I think their days were numbered seeing the field anyway, with or without Tristan Alvano. And we'll see. But I definitely think if Tristan were to commit to Nebraska, I think there's an absolute day one competition there.
Schmidty, for what it's worth, I think if we do have a couple segments, back to back this fall in the potential kicking competition, I think the listeners would eat it up. Everyone loves kicking. That's one of the most, electric positions on a football field.
They love kickers that make kicks, and
just imagine the calls we would get in if we're trying to spend a whole segment talking about the kickers.
I mean, if there's Alex Henry moments, yeah, sure, we'll talk about the drive and the miraculous kick heard round Husker Nation. Till then, we're going to spend some time here on more of the prospects. You've got corner Sincere Safe Alua. He is an IMG kid. And let's get a lowdown on him real quick, Brady. And again, can log on hailvarsity.com and check out Brady's reports on these. And just as a side note, you've also got GBR, the promo code. You can enter in to save $10 on the magazine and digital subscription, just so that Husker fan in your life you can take care of. But back to Sincere, IMG always kind of raises my eyebrows just because of their pedigree.
Yeah, immediately what stood out to me looking at his film is he's got that big frame, physical, but he is tough. He likes to press receivers. He likes to be physical at the line, and he's got the quickness and speed to recover if he, if they break contain him and they get behind him. So he's going to be able to kind of be physical at the line, hold blocks, shed blocks to potentially get help out in the run stop game. And then if a receiver were to kind of get behind him here in the Big Ten, he's got the makeup speed to be able to cover some ground and get there. So it's really impressive. And like you said, with IMG, the way that they like to build kids up, I mean, that's where Nebraska's got a couple of guys that they're looking at. They just offered another kid originally out of Tennessee that went to the same defensive back camps as Sincere. So they like what they're seeing there, and when you see it on film, I mean, it's pretty obvious why you'd want this kid. You would want to get this kid in the program.
Brady, let's talk about William Pop Watson as he flipped his commitment from Nebraska to Virginia Tech, which wasn't all that surprising, I don't think. But do we have any sort of update on what type of quarterbacks Nebraska could be going after now to replace Pop Watson?
It's going to be really interesting. I think you're seeing now they are appealing to Jeff Sims, the former Georgia Tech quarterback in the transfer portal. They like him. I haven't really heard anybody that they're really seeking after in terms of the 2023 class for a quarterback. They might be trying to keep an eye on somebody in the Philly area, or even on the West Coast, make a last ditch push. I mean, Nebraska coaching staffs historically have really got some pretty good quarterbacks that way, just before signing day and everything. But I wonder if part of it is if they can get Sims in and they get some guys filled in, then 2024 and the classes beyond, you've got some really appealing quarterback prospects out of those classes. And like you said, I mean, once Mark Whipple wasn't going to be at Nebraska, I think Pop Watson's days were gone. Those guys go back quite a ways, and there's a pretty good allegiance there. So it's a tough loss for Nebraska, but kind of one you saw coming.
Well, Pop, we talked to his father, and really talented kid, kind of a comp of a Kyler Murray when we look at athleticism, height, and just arm strength, and just more of a mobile guy. That's the guy that really took and solidified the spot. Nebraska and Whipple didn't go after, of course, the kid everybody wants, and that's Flores out of Gretna. And now Nebraska has neither quarterback. Of course, Flores is off to Okie State, but now Pop isn't even coming to Lincoln here for this 2023 class.
So, Brady, can you play quarterback?
What's the eligibility like?
No, I've got my mobility is shot at this point.
See, I remember having a big discussion with my friends whenever Kendall Hinton got the start for the Broncos about what my stats would be if I were to step into an NFL game. And I thought, you know what? I could maybe get 25% completion percentage.
1 out of 4, check down.
Well, I was thinking like, a 4 for 12 day, a 4 for 16 day would be respectable. And then he went out there and was like 0 completions with 1 interception. And they only gave him like 6 attempts at it. And I went, you know what? I may have been wrong there. Maybe I couldn't play quarterback at the NFL level for one game. I thought screen passes at least would be doable.
Got to have touch, Elijah. Now, I don't worry about you seeing over the line in that aspect, but
I have overthrown a pitcher from my umpiring days, like trying to toss it back. I've overthrown the pitcher once or twice, and that's always the most embarrassing feeling. That's like the reality check of, I don't think I can make it in the NFL.
Brady Oltmans with us. Brady, hang on for us if you can. We'll dive into the offensive side of the ball with Quentin Ives. Get your take on him here coming up, so hang tight. We're up against a break. And a reminder to you this holiday season and beyond, please buckle up. There's a lot of holiday parties going on. Maybe you're having a good time. Maybe you have one too many. But when push comes to shove, you drink, you drive, you lose. Get that Uber call to get the lift taken care of. Get a cab, but get a safe way home. And don't get behind the wheel when you drink. 1 out of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances if you don't drink? Why take chances if you drink? Don't drive. And this message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. More on a big official visit weekend.
And while we're talking holidays here, I want Brady's take on white elephant gifts. I need some help with that. Okay. So I think he might be the person to ask. Maybe chew on that for a second during the break, Brady.
Good work.
Come back on that.
Usually it's, I don't know, $10, $15, right?
That's what I'm saying. $25 limit, Brady. Give me some ideas. I'm struggling.
All right, Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Brady Oltmans continues on with this big recruiting weekend for Nebraska. Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And find us all on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah, at Brady Oltmans for Brady on Twitter. And the Nebraska skill position commit, Quentin Ives out of Beverly, New Jersey, 6'3", 180. And he's played running back. He's played wide out. What do you feel his fit is? What part of the offensive side of the ball do you think Nebraska will or could use him at? The hybrid's great, but is he more of a running back lean or a wide receiver lean?
I imagine he'll play running back. I just talked with his high school coach earlier today, and he's one of the EJ Barthel guys because they had a good connection built up. Was going to go to UConn, and then basically before it was announced, EJ texted the head coach and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Nebraska." And as the coach told me, he didn't even have time to hit send on his message before EJ said, "And I want Quentin to come with me." Was the follow up. He's a guy that is actually kind of relatively new to football. I think he just started playing about 2 years before his freshman year. And when he arrived, because I think he's initially from Virginia, when he arrived in New Jersey, he had to sit out the first couple games because he didn't have enough practices built up to play right away. And as the coach was telling me, he's just kind of grown into his body, grown into the ability of knowledge on the field. But his explosiveness, his intangibles is what caught him. There was a game this year where he breaks through the middle, and then it looks like, as the coach told me, looked like about 3 defenders had him. They had a good pursuit angle on him at the 50, and then that's when the burners came on, and nobody was going to catch him after that. It's one of those things that it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but when you see it on film, you point to it and you say, okay, we got to get that guy. And I think that just falls in line with EJ Barthel. It fits in line with the Rule coaching staff and what they're looking for in the skill position guys.
Brady, we have a comment in on YouTube from Juan saying that he thinks Ives is similar to Maurice Washington. Do you have a pro comp or a college comp for this guy?
Maurice is interesting. That might be the best one that comes off the top of my head because I can't really – I'm drawing a blank on who exactly would be. I mean, he would be kind of a more dynamic back, but I think he's a little bit built to be a little bit more physical than like a Ramir Johnson would be. He's going to be more suited to picking up blitzes and more suited to lowering the shoulder and kind of trucking for an extra 3 yards than Rahmir would be. But I think that makes him more valuable and more dynamic of what they want to do with Marcus Satterfield's offense, and then just by playing in the Big Ten by nature.
So a poor man's Jamal Charles, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I like that.
Go Jamal Charles, as you have the 4-2.
I said poor man's for now.
What's the top end of that frame? You think they get him to 220?
I think they could. It's really weird because I think it's all up in the air. They could really do a whole lot with these guys. I mean, the players were coming out seeing what is now in the Big Red Project, or the Go Big Project, I guess, in that new facility, and they're in awe. And I know that that's one thing that the administration wanted it to be, was the premier development facility. And I haven't been in there for a couple of weeks now, but I know that it's still on track to open up in the summer, and they want to get the next team in there before the season starts. So I mean, they had an impressive weight room before. I can't imagine what they're going to do with an even better one, and a more studious nutrition and all that kind of staff.
What did you think of Rule's halftime with Nebraska-Purdue?
Man, if you ever feel down about Nebraska football, just send Matt Rule out there to give a speech, and he'll rally the troops and find the nearest wall, and it'll go down quick. But I think it's one of those things that it's one of those things where you always date the opposite of your ex kind of thing. For a long time there, Scott Frost was never going to be the guy that you cart out at halftime to rally the troops and say, give us a fiery speech kind of thing. And then you have the dynamics of where Frost, when he was introduced, was, at the suite and balloons and stuff up, and it was kind of red tie and shaking hands, whereas Matt Rule gets introduced on the practice field. And he's there to, get everybody excited in the middle of a top 5 basketball game. It's just that dichotomy that strikes me. And then obviously they don't even have a full coaching staff yet, and they're already getting 4 recruits in 2 days committed to Nebraska, and they've got guys committing before they even arrive on campus. So it's a stark contrast, but it's one of the reasons why I think Mark Rule was so appealing to Trev Alberts during the search. In
your opinion, better or worse than that infamous Brian Kelly halftime speech where he went Southern accent, calling everyone his family?
This was genuine.
I don't think you can get any worse than that. I mean, he was on a mission, but it wasn't, it wasn't the same Baton Rouge mission that Brian Kelly tried to sell right away.
I do declare. Do you want to jump in here with White Elephant here?
Oh, yeah. So, Brady, the family's got a $25 White Elephant gift exchange for the extended family to come together. And I've said, with the price of inflation, I think maybe we need to raise that 25 up to 30 this year. But I digress. Do you have any suggestions for White Elephant gifts under $30? Could be serious, could be some sort of gag gift. I've been known to go with the gag gift in my day. So just want to get your take on any recommendations. I'm running dry.
A solid one for me is get them a Christmas-themed set of socks that jingle, like the high, just about calf level socks that jingle, because it's really funny and you hold them up and you have a chuckle, but then sure enough, in the middle of January, they're wearing them around the house, and it's practical and it keeps the feet warm. So, I mean, you have that fun about it right away, but then practicality, they're actually going to wear those socks. So
that's good. That
might be a good one.
Going to get back to football because I'm not a gift giver.
See, and my recommendation right back is I've had good success with cheese balls, the big old tub.
The tub.
The big old tub, because it gets wrapped up and everyone goes, what's in the big thing? And they shake it and they go, I'm not sure what's in there. And they open it up and it's cheese balls, and who doesn't love cheese balls?
That's pretty good. Wide receiver coach, any feel, Brady? A couple of spots to fill out on offense.
I haven't heard a name that gets repeated. I've asked around. I've asked a couple of people in the coaching circles, who have they heard? What are the names being thrown out there? And nobody's really saying the same name twice. There's never really, and there hasn't been anybody that's kind of materialized as the, point to them and say, there you go kind of thing. There have been some names that have been shopped to me about Matt Rule that usually end up on his staffs, either somewhere along the way in Temple, Baylor, or Carolina, that aren't here yet. But I think that there are guys who might have, like Jake Peets, was in line, but then ultimately had a change of heart and didn't want to come to Nebraska, or liked where they were at now and want to see it through. So as of right now, I haven't really heard a front runner name come through yet, but that could definitely change by the end of the week.
Well, they're getting it finished up, and they're doing a marvelous job. Real quick, about 20 seconds here. What's on the horizon for Nebraska recruiting as far as schedule and then this next weekend?
Oh, well, right now they're looking at a little bit over a dozen official visits next weekend. A couple of the guys who are already committed, but they also are getting guys that haven't committed yet that they're hoping to get sealed the deal, either JUCO or high school recruits that are coming in this upcoming weekend. So it's going to be kind of a two strong weeks for them.
Brady, we will no doubt commandeer you Friday again if you got time to give us that OV list, all right?
Absolutely.
Good to see you, man. Appreciate your time. There he is. Good stuff all weekend from Brady Oltmans, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Brady's story as well, in depth with the Nebraska defense, that 3-3-5. Really good research from Brady on that. Please read that. A wind down of Monday. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, tomorrow on the show, Mitch Sherman will join us from The Athletic. And then excited to talk some college football, some NFL, and do that with our friend from the Sporting News. It's been way too long since Bill Bender's been with us, so we'll dive in there. Cam Taylor-Britt getting a game ball from Zach Taylor is really cool, and Joey Football getting his first win over Cleveland. That was interesting, and since he's hot, man, playing good ball, Buffalo kind of slept-walked but survived the Jets. And I hate to do this, or the suit, Rob, was in Donkeyland yesterday. He was at the Broncos-Chiefs game, and wow, what a second half by Denver. Has Russell woken up yet?
Good question. I loved the effort from Russell Wilson trying to power in near the goal line. I did not like the result, though, as he was knocked out of the game, and you knew you were kind of screwed as a Broncos fan with Brett Rippon behind center, so that was unfortunate. But I like the fight from the Broncos. It's kind of been the story this season of just not enough whenever it matters, especially on the offensive end. So that was disappointing. The Broncos have now lost, I believe, 16 straight games.
You're eliminated.
Oh, I'm well aware. You don't have to remind me.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I know the Broncos have been eliminated, and Nathaniel Hackett should be eliminated from the head coaching position here soon, so there's always good news on the horizon. Bad news on the horizon is the Broncos aren't going to get that top 3 pick that they've worked so hard for this season, so that's what made me cry to sleep last night. But yeah, the Broncos, it's all sunshine in Broncos country whenever the Avalanche and the Nuggets start playing. So
hey, that's something to look at and say, all right, we can switch and transition to winning or winning franchises anyway. But no, I mean, Denver was down 27 a rip.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing Mahomes in fantasy, and I was kind of hoping they'd, I don't know, start running the football. No, they ended up hanging on.
Well, do you guys lose points in your league for picks? See, that would be huge if you lost points because Mahomes threw 3 picks yesterday. 2 of them to former Iowa standout Josie Jewell, former Iowa standout linebacker.
That one pick was nuts.
The one where he laid out?
Yeah, with his palms pointed towards the football.
Well, he had 2 really good picks. Then you had Surtain somehow pick one off the grass. I don't know how he caught. But
Surtain's awesome.
Surtain's awesome. Josie Jewell's awesome. The Broncos, not awesome.
No, they can't play quarterback.
Hey, at least, though, there was that positive note, which was Cam Taylor-Britt sealing the win for the Bengals. And he had a rough first couple weeks to start where he was getting picked on a lot, and you can see him growing into that role for the Bengals and comes up big on third and goal and fourth and goal at the end of that game to go secure a win for the Bengals. So fully deserved game ball.
Would you have enough guts to walk up to Tom Brady and have him sign the football you intercepted from him? Because that happened yesterday.
I think I would in an average season from Tom Brady where, they're 12-2 at this point in the season, and you can go up and do that and feel less bad. In a season like this, after everything that's gone down off the field for Tom Brady, that takes some balls.
Mm-hmm.
That takes some balls to go do that.
It does.
You know, it also takes some balls from Purdy yesterday to go out and perform like that.
That was big. That was huge. San Fran's a well-built machine, and there's a lot of coaches coaching elsewhere that Shanahan's put together. Final thought, again, prayers, hugs to the Leach family as we are continuing to pull for the Pirate and his family. And we'll be back with you tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.